coming home." Optimus walked through the room, looking around. "Where's Molly?" his voice echoed, breaking the silence. Ratchet nonchalantly pointed to the rafters, not even looking up. Prime sighed, looking up. "How long has she?" "All day." Optimus looked up, frowning. "Has she spoken?" Ratchet stopped working, turning around. "No. She hasn't," Ratchet responded, looking up. "She has been laying there for hours." Raphael flew a remote control helicopter with an attached camera up to the rafters, but we couldn't see her with how she's positioned. Optimus huffed, closing his optics. "Do you know why?" he asked, looking to Maiko. She froze, biting her lip. Finally, she sighed, downcasting her eyes. "I'm not sure," she responded. "She's been like this since this morning after athletics." Optimus nodded slowly, glancing up. "What's wrong?" He put a digit to his com, tuning on the frequency. "Molly?" he wavered. "Are you all right?" "No," she moaned from the railing. Optimus looked up, stepping backwards. "What is wrong?" He tilted his helm, seeing her swish a scaled tail. She rolled over, looking up instead of down. "I think I'm sick," she groaned, placing the backside of her hand on her forehead. Optimus glanced at Ratchet. The medic shrugged, and aimed a scanner at the ceiling. It buzzed, thermal signatures popping up. "You're not sick," he yelled up to her, turning away. "Says who?" she growled deeply. "Says your physician." She huffed, spitting a strand of hair out of her maw. "But my temperature feels higher," she sighed, shivering. Optimus sighed, and looked back up. "Can you please come down?" he asked, hoping she would respond. Molly groaned, lifting her chin off the beam. "Now?" she whimpered, dropping her legs. "Please." She huffed, and crawled across the steel. If Optimus didn't know any better, he would have thought that there was a cybercat slinking above him. Occasionally, he would catch a glimpse of her tail, or a slip of footing. Something is most definitely wrong. He thought, her balance is incredibly off today. She wobbled on the beam, placing one foot in front of the other. Her tail slinked behind her, swaying carelessly. She breathed heavily, and crouched next to the shadowed wall. She placed a hand on the wall, supporting her weakened body. She bent over, pulling her wings out. Scaled and leathery, she painfully opened them, catching a bit of a draft from the vents. She coughed, her tail and wings stirring up dust. She glided down, dust falling like snow behind her. Her wings ached, being folded down for a while. Her breath showed up as clouds of condensation, little frosticles floating around. Molly landed on a catwalk rail, curling her tail round the poles. She folded her wings around her, hanging upside down like a bat. She bent upward, poking her head up. Optimus scanned over her, and frowned. Her hair was thrown together in a messy ponytail, and her scales on her wings and tail went opalescent as they usually are. They were just dull. Her eyes were an odd pale gold, shimmering just a bit outside of the iris. Her pupil was slitted more than usual, looking more cat-like. Optimus knelt down to her, looking into her eyes. She bit her lip, pulling her head back and avoided eye contact. "Molly," he began, tilting her chin up towards him with his digit, "you are obviously not all right. What's wrong?" Molly gulped, and jerked away. She pulled herself over the railing, adjusting her wings. Her tail uncurled itself from the poles, and wrapped around her right leg like a ribbon. She sighed, and looked up to the mesh in front of her. She exclaimed, "I'm fine. Just a fever." Her wings subconsciously ruffled, adjusting colors. Lime green. For Animalians, that means lies. Molly puffed her cheeks slightly, pulling her wings closer for odd warmth. "Aha!" Optimus droned, reaching out to stroke her wings. His finger lightly touched the scales, before they splattered from where he touched them with blush pink. She jolted up, and relaxed. A content expression flowed across her face, and she purred. She closed her eyes softly, and leaned into his bedding. That feels good. She purred, tilting her head to the side. Optimus smiled, massaging a joint. Molly purred even louder, rolling the joint. You spoiling me. She mumbled, and gently pushed him away. Maiko rolled her eyes, and shoved her face into a K-pop magazine. Molly walked away, scrunching her blushed wings closer to her back. Prime tilted his head in confusion, and pouted. Ugh. Molly groaned, leaning on a wall. I still feel bad. She rested her hand on the top of her forehead, feeling her temperature. No heat came from her face. She sighed, slumping her shoulders. What is wrong with me? She screamed to the heavens, burying her face into her hands. Optimus stepped back, giving her room. He looked to Ratchet, hoping for an answer. Ratchet shrugged, and turned his attention to the mess in front. Molly's words were muffled by her hands, making them indistinguishable. Molly lifted her head up, hair falling out of its containment. I think I miss home. She realized, her mouth dropping a smidge. She looked up to Optimus, biting her lip. Optimus tilted his head, watching her skip to the ground bridge control. Hey, guys. She yelled back behind her. Yeah? Jack yelled back, getting everyone's attention. Molly smirked, grabbing the laptop connected to the controls. You still want to go to Animalia? Maiko, Raph, and Jack looked at each other, eyes widening. You're serious? Maiko squealed, jaw hanging from her head. Molly smiled from ear to ear, nodding her head rapidly. She turned to the bots, looking for approval. RC looked to Bulkhead and B, and they shrugged. Optimus turned to them, and smiled. It is about time, isn't it? He joked. Molly bounced up and down. Her fingers slammed the keys, typing in the coordinates. You are going to love it, she squealed, her wings flashing yellow. The ground bridge turned on, the cool colors swirling around in a vortex. Molly only grinned wider. She pranced over to the edge, jumping off. She snapped her wings open, soaring to Optimus's shoulder. Hurry! Before someone comes in through the other end. She beamed. Maiko jumped up and down, pulling the boys with her to the vortex. Ratchet, Molly pointed, you're coming. What? Ratchet groaned. Why? Because I said so. She yelled, holding onto Optimus's shoulder. She looked eagerly into the portal, squeezing her hands around a piece of metal. She bit her lip, her eyes returning to that sea green that Optimus admires so much. Well? She looked around. What are we waiting for? Let's go. She jumped a little, smiling. Optimus chuckled, stepping forward. Autobots, let's roll out, he shouted, walking into the portal. The kids bounded after him, followed by the rest of the Autobots. The swirling colors almost blinded the girl on Optimus's shoulder, but it didn't faze her excitement. Finally, home. She sighed, and flew off his shoulder. Welcome. She greeted, spreading her wings out into the exit, to Animalia. Morning sun bathed us in a warm glow, and my smile widened as I floated above the street. Welcome to Animalia, I shouted, turning to them. My wings flashed purple on instinct, being in my kingdom sparking my magic and independence. Their eyes and optics widened in amazement as they exited the ground bridge. And why shouldn't they? The sunrise shone through the spires and buildings, creating visible rays of gold. Unlike in Nevada, it was early morning here, the moon just setting. The windows of the skyscrapers sparkled like gems, silver and blue tints in every glass. Whoa! Maiko walked up to me, mouth ajar. I smiled, gracefully gliding down. Isn't it? I looked back to Optimus, grabbing Maiko's hand. I felt my wings shiver, and I looked to the scales. As I expected, their shine returned to full glory. I smiled wider, bouncing up and down. I fanned my wings out, spreading them out to reach the ends of the empty street. This, I breathed in the crisp chilled air. This is home. My shoulders and legs started to twitch in excitement and I squealed like a little girl. I can't believe I'm home, I squeaked, jumping up and flying in a loop. I giggled, pulling my arms to my chest. I turned to everyone else. Seems like it's morning? Ratchet observed, looking around in disbelief. Well duh. I groaned. We're in a different time zone. I sighed, and flew back up. Come on. I smiled. You can't see the kingdom by standing in the middle of the street. I grabbed Optimus's servo with my tiny little hands, and pulled him up the street. Your Majesty. I heard someone shout, and I turned. In front of us was a group of anthros. Oh. I chirped, letting go of Optimus's servo. Be right back. I glided to the small cliché, twirling my wings when I landed. Good morning. I smiled, bowing my head in a greeting. They froze, dropping their small bags. Yuck. They droned, staring at me, wide-eyed. I raised an eyebrow, and laughed. Oh, come on. I joked. It's not like I bite. I emphasized bite and showed off my fangs. The girls flinched, but regained their composure. Sorry, Your Highness. They apologized, curtsying. I giggled, and picked up their bags. Would you be so kind to tell me what street we're on? I asked, handing them their bags. They shook as they reached their hands to their bags. Only one seemed comfortable. Oh, the Australian shepherd smiled. We're on Archway Pass. Also, you're prettier than what you look like in the textbooks. She smiled, and glanced up. Are those? I looked to where her eyes directed, noticing Jack, Maiko, and Raph frozen in their places. Yes. I replied, those are humans. She tilted her head, ears switching directions. Cool. She yapped, and dragged her friends away. I laughed, walking back to the group. Anyways. I laughed. There is so much we have to do. Come on. I grabbed Maiko and Raph's hands and pulled Jack by the shoulder with my tail. I looked back, smiling like a goof. The Autobots were just standing there, looking like they were about to laugh their afts off. Ugh. I rolled my eyes, and let go of the teen's hands and shoulder. Are you coming or what? I asked, putting a hand on my hip. Optimus, I don't care if I like you, I will drag you around myself if you don't move your cute aft right now. RC smirked at the rest, and walked forward. Bee-eyed Optimus buzzed like he was laughing, and followed RC with Bulkhead. Followed by Ratchet, who grudgingly walked forward, Optimus took long strides. I smiled, and jumped high, spreading my wings for extra boost. I flipped in the air, feeling the G-force on my chest. Let's go. I cheered, gliding down the street. I looked underneath me, seeing Maiko and the boys run underneath my shadow. I smiled, and angled my wings upwards. Trees on the edge blew in the updraft, spreading multicolored leaves around. Wind rushed by my face, and the sounds of the market reached my ears. I smiled wider, turning on my back to face everyone else. You have shown me your world. I mused, flying to Optimus and taking his servo. Now it's time I showed you all mine. I pulled him around the corner, smiling. Main Street was full of early morning wakers, nocturnals, college students, and other assortments of creatures. Colors flashed across the buildings, reflecting like quartz. The buzzing of the street filled the air, activity flourishing from the city. I smiled, turning on a wing. I will say it again, I chirped. Welcome to Animalia. My wings flashed different colors. Everyone stopped in wonderment, making me feel way too giddy. I spun in the air, sending small snowflakes around. Oh, right. I winced. It's probably freezing for them. I flew down, curling my wings around them. Cold? I asked, warming up my scales. Jack and Raph nodded, blushing a bit. Shouldn't you be, you know? Maiko whispered into my ear, nodding towards Optimus. I blushed, walking forwards. Well, I have a plan. I looked away, blush pink crawling up the edges of my wings. Raphael laughed, looking around. His expression quickly went to one of worry. Will they? He gulped. Will they hurt us? I squared my shoulders, and pulled him closer with my wings. I don't think so, I answered, smiling, and if they try, they'll have to go through me. But almost all of the kingdom is really peaceful towards, I looked up to the Autobots, and frowned. Outsiders. If I concentrated, I could feel the emotions going through the bots, and it seemed like they were intimidated. Even by their gestures and movements, I could tell they were a slight bit frightened. There were some dragons on the boulevard, and a couple pop wolves with shopping bags, which are relatively big, at least as tall as RC or taller. I smiled, and pulled my wings back from the teens. They looked at me in confusion. I leapt into the air, causing the breeze to pick up and whistle loudly through the buildings and alleys. I looked to Optimus, and blinked softly. I turned my head back to the street, and glided back down. I don't know why I kept flying up just to look at him, but it made me feel better. I landed far in front of them, folding my wings back against my spine. I looked around, smiling. I breathed in, taking in the large amount of magic, energy radiation I focused on it all, feeling the adrenaline pump back into my veins. I don't want to shift just yet, I told myself, and went back to the others. There was a bobcat and a mesh cat, talking to Maiko and Jack. So you're human? The bobcat asked eagerly, like 100% real human? It's been forever since I've talked to one. The cat droid nodded, swishing her metal tail. I've never seen a human before. But, I've never been outside of Animalia. Except to go to clubs. I tilted my head. I know those two. Oh my god. Amy? Becca? I shouted, running to them. They turned to me, and their eyes widened. Molly. They shouted, sprinting to me. Oh my stars. I haven't seen you in forever, Amy. I beamed, hugging the gold robot cat. OMS. I can't believe I tease you. It's so good to see you. Amy shouted back, squeezing the life out of me. Amy YC can't breathe. I choked, smiling. Oops. She apologized, sorry. She grinned stupidly, before being shoved away. Hi Molly. Rebecca, pretend she's wearing clothes, greeted, hugging me. I purred, bringing her closer. Hi, Becca. I smiled. She pushed off, looking at me up and down. You haven't changed. She mewed, turning to everyone else. I'm guessing these are your friends. Yep. I smiled, looking at everyone. I suppose you have seen Maiko, Jack and Raphael in my music videos? I gestured to the three, smiling. I knew you were Maiko Nakadai, the lead guitarist. Amy shouted, pointing, and you are Raphael Esquivel, Molly's keyboardist. I leaned to Maiko. She really loves music, I whispered, smirking. Jack was staring at Amy in shock, and I could see it in his expression that he was extremely and utterly sexually confused. Amy just kept talking and talking, which kept Jack's attention. Whoop. I know where this is going. I smirked, leaning on Optimus's pt. The girls finally looked up, and stepped back in surprise. Holy crap. They finished off, eyes widening. What are those? They yelled, hiding behind Maiko. I smiled, craning my neck to look at Optimus's optics. They are Cybertronians, I replied, or more specifically, they're Autobots. I'll explain more tomorrow. Amy and Becca stepped away from Maiko, looking at them. So the rumors are true. Becca gasped, looking at B in awe. Wait, rumors? What rumors? Becca and Amy looked at each other, and back at me. Well, ever since that vamp came to the palace, people have been saying that there were 3 giant robots by the throne side. Becca explained, but, seeming as there are 5 here now, I guess that explains it. I nodded, breathing out. We might as well get going. I sighed, my lip twitching up. It was nice seeing you girls. They nodded, hugging me one last time. Hope to see you at Euphoria. Amy purred, walking away. I nodded, laughing. Maiko looked at me, smiling widely. They're so cool. She shouted, grabbing me by the shoulders. I giggled, pushing her away. I know. I smiled, and pulled them down the street. Come on. I squealed, skipping down the street. So much to do. So much to see. So much to tell. I turned the corner, trying to ignore all the people staring at us as we walked by. I couldn't help but feel guilty. It sounds wrong in my head, but it's how I feel. I don't know anybody in my kingdom that will even mention aliens in a good fashion. I pursed my lips, before letting out a breath. Something wrong? I turned, looking at Optimus. No. I lied. Nothing is wrong. I clenched my jaw, trying my best to sustain a blush. I shook my head out of the thoughts, returning my mind to bliss. So much for bliss. Watch out. I pushed Maiko and Raph back, watching the dragon crash into a taxi. My car. I heard someone scream, and watched the dragon pick his head off the roof of the smashed automobile. The owner stepped out from an outside restaurant, and that satyr did not look happy. Okay. I droned, pushing the kids away from the fight, moving on. I turned away, walking down the other sidewalk. You said they were peaceful. Jack shouted, looking back. They are towards humans. I bit my cheek, glancing back as well. The Autobots were, how do I say it, a little jumpy. Y'all 5 all right? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Optimus nodded, looking around. He was taking all of this a little better than, for example, Bulkhead. What's that? Why is that person walking on goat legs? What the frag? I groaned, hearing every question. Bulkhead, I growled, don't question everything you see. Animalia is much more different than almost any culture. Period. Bulkhead finally shut up at that. I sighed in relief, rolling my wing joints. I unfurled my wings, seeing a speaker on a street light. Be right back, I said, flying to the street light. Usually larger than Wham ones, we have to be able to sustain light for our larger inhabitants. I landed on the top of the light, and dropped to the opposable claws on the top of it. Let's get some music up on this street, I murmured, smirking. I turned the dial on the speaker. And now, on KF56, with the boys on Crazy Cats, is the Queen's Own hosted cover of Starships. With a cappella. I grinned, turning it up to fill the whole street. I'm going to get so many complaints. I giggled, flying back to my friends. What? I laughed, feeling their really stares. It was getting dull. Optimus chuckled, making everyone in the me look at him. Yes. I made him laugh. He's so cute when he's generally happy. I smiled happily, blushing madly. I quickly did a flip over, turning onto my stomach in the air. This is going to be a good rest of the day. Oh Primus, did I just? Yes I did. Optimus mentally face-palmed, his faceplates heating up entirely. I can't believe you let that slip. Ratchet whispered, partly laughing. Shut up. Optimus whispered back, keeping his optics forwards. She is rubbing off on you. Ratchet stated, looking at the buildings. Optimus smiled, looking at the winged girl flying in front of him. I know. The walk was pretty quick, given that Bulkhead and Ratchet, the trouble children, kept dripping, bugging me with questions, and not surprisingly, aggravated one of the shop owners. They're not allowed back to the herbal market, and attention wasn't in our favor. Humans? Robots? Your Grace? My head is still ringing. And the trouble hasn't ended yet. It's so cold. Jack screamed, rubbing his arms. We're in Russia. I yelled back, feeling the ear from the alley rip across my face. Maiko and Jack started arguing with each other. Why? I wasn't listening. But it was loud enough to get a pot thrown from the top of an apartment. The pot crashed next to their feet, little pieces of ceramic scattering around the ground. Like they cared. I groaned, looking around for something to stop the yelling. Oh. A pawnshop. I smirked, walking into the empty trade store. I looked around, seeing no worker. But I did see an semi-automatic. I scanned for the owner, before grabbing the rifle from the stand. Checking if it wasn't loaded, I walked out the doors of the silent room. The two were still shouting at each other, causing a commotion, in the ocean on a Saturday night, in the middle of the sidewalk. Great way to draw attention to us, guys. I scoffed, aiming the rifle at the sky. Boom. Everyone jumped, Maiko shrieking. They looked up, then at me. The barrel was smoking, I having the most serious look I could give at the moment. What's all that racket? I turned, seeing a Naga slither out of the pawn shop. I hope you don't mind, I apologized, handing him back the gun. I helped myself to your semi-automatic rifle. He nodded his head, gently taking the gun from my hands. I turned around, glaring at the two. They froze, looking away in fear. I rubbed my temples, just please don't argue anymore. They sighed, nodding their head guiltily. I shook my head, walking back down the way we were going. I heard a growl, deep and demonic. I looked up, hearing rough material scrape against tile. Nothing. I hummed, looking skeptically at the rooftops. Molly? Optimus asked, walking beside me. I replied, putting on a smile. Well, as you are royalty, he said in a questioning tone, shouldn't you have guards with you when you are out? I looked up to the buildings, hearing the clank of claws against glass. Oh, trust me, I assured, listening carefully, I do. Optimus nodded, looking up and left. So he drawled, holding his hands behind his back nervously, the castle. When will we be getting there? I looked to the side and thought, shrugging. I'm hoping we get there soon. I answered, because I want to show you around the city after we hang out for a bit. I stepped over a rock, looking up at him through the corner of my eye. The streets became more active, but nobody else questioned our little group. Maybe because we're on the more richer streets instead of the middle-class level marketplaces. The anthros were more cultured and pop than the ones at the south streets. We were actually greeted more politely. Oh, look. I pointed. They got a new dress at Opal Essence. I have to see Emily about it. I squealed, looking at the jeweled gown. Maiko turned to me, shocked. You like dresses? She gawked. Yeah. I droned. Maiko huffed, looking around. I tilted my head, confused. Am I that different? I pondered, swiveling my hips a bit. A glimmer of color flashed in the corner of my eye, catching my attention. Is that? I smiled widely, jumping up and down. We're almost there. I blurted, unfurling my wings and flying away. Molly. I heard Optimus yell, and heard running. The huge tower came into sight. Surprisingly, it didn't back in the street. I smiled widely, my hair whipping across my face. Sun rays parted from behind the palace, hiding its colors in shadows. I almost flew into a drake before skidding to a halt in front of the doors. I pumped my fists, ignoring the panting of the hounds above me. My friends ran up behind me, smiling like idiots. Even Ratchet. They stopped next to me, staring at the humongous building towering over us. Guys. I smiled. Welcome to my house.
Well, that's the ending of that chapter. I do hope you enjoy this video. If you like to see more, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel and leave a comment down below. Until next time.